So obviously, before we begin, today is the day. It is voting day today. I'm doing this the day before, on the Wednesday, so we don't know yet what has happened or what is happening. Like I say, we probably won't know until at least like Thursday evening to get any results. But needless to say, go out and vote. Please do go out and vote. Like I say, it is always very important that you do go out and vote. I am not advocating that you vote for any particular party, but please do go out and, actually use your democratic rights to go out and vote. Like I say, I've said it before, there's an infamous page in Barnsley Politics where it's not even like a page for politics, but needless to say, there are, to say, numerous people that continue to blame the Labour Party for essentially what are the failings of the national government, and say that, well, if we only voted another way, things would be better, but they have no idea when you actually confront them about this, about any idea about actual town politics and even what is going on in the town hall. So, please do go out and vote. And I always urge people, do get involved in politics, even on a local level. And, do go to your town council meetings. They are recorded now, most of them. So, you've got no excuse. And to get involved in local politics is almost as simple as easy as going to these local areas, finding out your issues, and, going to your town council meetings and finding out your local issues. And of course, if you are in Hartlepool, please do get out and go and vote. Like I say, every vote matters. So, with that said, we're going to get into our main bread and butter. So, obviously, Labour, and especially in Hartlepool, looks like it's going to be on a knife edge. It really does. I've seen polls that put Labour behind 4%. I've seen polls that literally put them behind 1%. I've seen polls that literally put them 1% ahead. So, it does look like that this could be tight. It does look like it could be a very tight race. I do hope Labour wins, because it will certainly set a fire. But again, Labour has to win, I think, decisively for this not to be a problem. If they just win, then this is still going to be a problem for Starmer, and Starmer will have a lot of issues to face. But again, we've talked about this, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So, before we jump into our article today, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And thank you to all those people who do support the channel. So, this comes from The Guardian. The title is, Labour keeps pushing the same old Tory line, but voters have moved on. It is exactly 16 years since Labour last won a general election, an anniversary the party does not celebrate. On the 5th of May 2005, Tony Blair beat Michael Howard. The Conservatives responded by listening with varying degrees of enthusiasm to David Cameron's gospel of brand decontamination. By electing Cameron as Howard's successor, the Tories showed that they had understood what Theresa May first told them in the party conference speech back in 2002, that they were seen as the nasty party. Cameron's modernisation project was neither thorough nor profound, but it worked well enough to require a shift in electoral strategy from Labour. The challenge goes unmet to this day. Labour still campaigns against the nasty party because it is the only threat that they can beat. There haven't been many lines of attacks against the parade of Conservative leaders, but the underlying message is consistent. Same old Tories. That is the background music when Keir Starmer challenges Boris Johnson over the mystery donations that funded the Downing Street makeover. In the Commons last week, Starmer called the Prime Minister Major Sleaze. The allegations reached back to the Tories' mid-90s slide into the rancid disrepute that took them out of office. It is right for the opposition to hold the government to account over corruption, but there is a nostalgic infection in the way Labour has hammered the word sleaze. It speaks of insecurity, and Starmer is trying to ignite flames of public indignation that have blown over a 25-year-old embers. The local and devolved elections on Thursday might show that the message is getting through, but Labour MPs and activists who have been knocking on doors in marginal areas are not that optimistic. They say that the rotten smell has reached the public's nose, but it is not overpowering. It does not beat the prospect of restored local or national esteem that many former Labour voters heard 2 years ago in Johnson's invitation to, quote, get Brexit done, which is what resonated even though the UK has left the EU. It doesn't help that Labour is also battling the perception in its former heartlands that the party has become too captured by snooty metropolitans and far-left fanatics, or just both. That cohort of angry ex-loyalists does not feature on Labour's old mental map of the Conservative voters. The standard model depicts the Tories as a machine for serving the rich at the expense of the needy, hardwired for cruelty. When the Tories show a compassionate streak, the automatic left response is to dismiss it as a cynical feint. When Conservative governments flirt with the egalitarian policy, as when Johnson speaks of, quote, levelling up, the left predicts failure throughout the ideological rigidity. The callous free market capitalism is too deeply ingrained. It is said that the Tory imagined is closed to social justice. And there is enough truth in that picture for the opposition to avoid dwelling on the gaps. But it is not the whole truth, which is why Britain keeps electing Conservative prime ministers. The left can account for those results without enduring the psychological trauma of admitting that good people have sincere reasons to actually reject the Labour leader. The aggressive media bias is the most reassuring explanation. That is true, and it's true enough. It satisfies anyone who would rather not interrogate the causes of opposition failure for too long. You can point to the right-wing tabloid hysteria to call off the search. But blaming the media simply slips into the easy blaming of the electorate being too stupid to see past the headlines. Labour does not endear itself to voters by treating the ballot paper as an exam and tutting when people give the wrong answer. A strategy based on telling voters to look again, look harder, because they missed the point last time is doomed, as anyone involved in the campaign for a second Brexit referendum can attest. A variant of the same problem is the habit of pointing to Tory prime ministers and claiming their mask is slipping. Starmer just used that line against Johnson over nurses' pay in March, and it was Ed Miliband that used to say it of Cameron. The mask metaphor is how opposition leaders say "I told you so" to voters. It is never an attractive look. Calling out the slippage implies that Labour is its superior wisdom knows the truth that lies hidden from the electorate. And the newest source of Labour is also in denial. It is to exaggerate Johnson's charisma. The Prime Minister is imbued with an affable mechanism that hypnotises voters into forgetting the horror of the Tory brand. Once again, true enough. But without the extra spark of the Boris persona, the 2019 election might have been even closer. But that also doesn't explain how Conservatives won the Tees Valley and the West Midlands mayoralties back in 2017, when May fought a weird self-sabotaging campaign, reminding voters of Tory nastiness more effectively than Labour ever could. And little noticed amid the fallout from May's implosion that in the election, where the increased Conservative vote share in the north of English seats, Johnson would go to win just 2 years later. The shift in Britain's electoral geography predates the Boris effect. Johnson's stick will wear thin eventually, but that will be the opportunity for Labour. But lost voters will not snap out of a trance and wonder by what witchcraft they were seduced into being Tories and pick up their old ancestral allegiance. Over a decade of opposition, Labour's offered many policies that it thinks voters should like, but stressed with solid rejections to the Tories, it hasn't worked. One thing no leader has attempted as a candidate is the humble explanation for why the party keeps losing, is to compete with a credible display of understanding why voters switch sides. It doesn't come easy. The left is conditioned to doubt that any decent human being couldn't be a Tory. This is the barrier that to empathy that across to which no minds are changed. The alternative is to keep running the same old campaign against the same old Tories and keep losing because Britain doesn't have the same old politics or its same old voters. And I've said time and time again, we need to actually up our game on this and actually produce policies that would make people vote for us and come over to our side. This is what we have to offer. And like I say, a lot of the Corbyn era policies were very popular when they weren't said, oh, by the way, this is a Labour policy. Then people weren't interested. But if you said what this policy was, people were very popular and in favour of it. But the second you said, oh, it's a Labour policy, ooh, that's where people backed off from it. So we do have a lot of stuff to do in the Labour Party. And trust me, the next general election needs to be fought. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, well, we need to have a progressive alliance. How can a progressive alliance work if we don't have a valid future to gain and to give? You know, a progressive alliance would be fine, but what policies is that progressive alliance actually going to formulate? How is it going to get these people who were once Labour voters to come back and vote Labour again? Or maybe they now have to vote Lib Dem. You know, if this is the true electoral path that many people want, this progressive alliance at the next general election, you know, there has to be a reason. You can't just talk about having an electoral alliance like we saw in 2019. You actually have to go forward and say how it's going to work and what policies this government is going to put forward. It has to put forward a map for what this Britain could be. And that is where, again, I say Starmer himself is failing. And I think, again, we on the left, we need to push Starmer to change. And we need to have a serious look and question a lot of these voters. I think that would be a grand start, going back to basics, going back to the roots of Labour voters themselves and having a look. Because like I said there, this electoral change did not start in 2019. It was well back in 2017 when Theresa May ran that disastrous campaign. And then 2 years later, Boris went on to win those seats where there had been some electoral gains from the Conservatives. So, like I say, there's a lot of things we have to do, and like I say, I don't have the answers for it, but I think that starting the conversation about it is a definite starting point. So, as always, like I say, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button, and of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.